Today's video is sponsored by ProGuides.com. ProGuides is a great resource for any and all of you looking to improve your gameplay, learn mechanics, strategy, etc. They've been a sponsor of mine and this channel for a while, and they've given us a little referral link now, so if any of you are interested in trying out their service with a free trial while also supporting the channel, go ahead and check them out. A link will be in the description. Okay, give me a second to nerd out about sports for like 60 seconds. We have some great League of Legends analysis today, but I think this comparison is appropriate. As you guys know, I'm a pretty big sports fan, not just the support local teams kind of sports fan, but the really loves delving into strategy and statistics and playing fantasy leagues kind of sports fan. And as somebody who loves learning about the nuances and details of the games played by the greatest athletes in the world, I have no bigger enemy than sports commentators.
The Houston Texans, who will forever regret passing on Johnny Manziel.
And Tim Tebow will get his shot at being the starting quarterback of the New York Jets.
Looked at Brazil, you looked at the Netherlands, Colombia, James Rodriguez and those boys.
Johnny Manziel will become even bigger in the city of Cleveland than his buddy and business partner LeBron James ever was.
Skip Bayless is a bit of a favorite of the internets to bash on, and you can probably see why. Skip is the kind of guy that won't really talk about the details of a game or the actual strategy used on a field or court. Rather, he'll talk about storylines and personalities and who cracked under pressure and who wanted it more.
When you're Kevin Durant and you're Derek Fisher and you're Russell Westbrook, etc., and you're at that closeout game, there's nobody that wants it more. It's just a question of who executes better, and then you decide why.
Who played harder in the last games? Miami did every game. LeBron played harder than Kevin Durant did 4 straight games.
That is the most ridiculous thing any sports writer has ever said.
You can see this in his infamous predictions on how Johnny Manziel will be the next great NFL QB that everyone's going to regret not drafting, or how RG3 is going to be such a better talent than Andrew Luck. An esports equivalent for a similar sort of talking head would probably be Thorin, somebody who's a lot more interested in talking about his opinions on how players and organizations behave, sometimes getting very stubborn opinions that he refuses to change despite evidence to the contrary, rather than getting into detailed strategy about how things are played out in a match. Except there's a pretty massive difference in that Thorin is much more educated, a better writer, he's smarter, still does actual analysis, has more reasonable opinions, and is also actually right sometimes too. Anyway, the reason I bring this up today is because I think this kind of attitude is a bit of an issue that permeates the League of Legends community. So many people all across the world love to do exactly this. They love to talk about what they see and why it's dumb. Sometimes it's relative to pro players and the pro scene, saying that, oh, this team is good or that player is bad. Why? Just because they are. I mean, I'm actually kind of guilty of this one myself. I love to make fun of TSM for always managing to choke at Worlds without ever really trying to analyze why. Although a much more commonplace example of this would probably be the average League of Legends player that loves to complain about champions, saying that, oh, Akali is broken, she needs to be nerfed, why did Riot buff her, without ever trying to critically analyze or talk about how Akali progresses as a champion throughout a game. Typically, when you hear someone make this kind of comment or complaint, they either don't bother trying to understand whatever they're complaining about and how it fits into the game as a whole, or sometimes they just have a poor understanding of how things are actually played. While some of these statements certainly can be true to an extent, often players in the wider community will parrot them without understanding why they're true. People will complain that they always lose to Janna and say that she must be overpowered because of it, but while this comment in itself isn't that big of a problem, since it's fairly true, you get into dangerous territory when you go from complaining that Janna is overpowered because of Ardent Censor to suddenly complaining that Nasus is overpowered because you lost to him and Wither is dumb. Often players will look at something at face value and completely miss the broader picture of what's going on. It's a very easy thing to do. I've done it myself all throughout my time playing League of Legends, and I've probably made multiple YouTube videos that have done exactly that. But today I want to take a look at a personal example and show you just how deep League of Legends can go in terms of strategy and analysis, even at a mediocre rating, and just how one boring champion and their boring kit with broken abilities do so much more than what you might think at face value. I know you guys are probably getting tired of me making videos with this champion, but I honestly can think of no better example for this video than Irelia. Irelia is the exact kind of champion that has a lot of hidden depth that can be easy to miss and often leads many people to complain about her. Many of you complain that she's a boring champion for me to essentially one trick, use say that she's overpowered and takes no skill, that her stun is broken, or her Q is busted. This is just one example. You can take pretty much any champion and you can find bronze players out there that will complain they're overpowered, but because I know Irelia, let's stick to her and show you some examples of just how everything goes into using this basic and boring simple kit. For our first example here, I'm playing Irelia versus a Riven top lane, and this is one of my personal favorite matchups because it's almost 100% skill oriented. A good Riven can crush Irelia, and a good Irelia can crush a Riven. There are obviously ways that the better player can still lose the match, but the lane is almost always decided based off of entirely each player's technical ability as well as some mind games. So in this example, you can see that both champions have had a relatively uneventful early game. Currently, we're both at level 6. I have a slight CS advantage and item advantage due to a more recent recall and using teleport to get back to lane, but that means Riven has TP advantage, plus she has Infernal Drake, so things are pretty even. With both champions being at level 6 and with me seeing this Riven's gameplay for a fair amount of time now, I'm thinking a few things. Number 1, I can kill her. Number 2, when should I try? You see, in the Irelia versus Riven matchup, Riven wins this matchup 100 times out of 100 if they're on even footing and Riven uses her crowd control to cancel Irelia's auto attacks. With her knockup and stun, she can potentially cancel 2 autos. She can essentially negate a 3rd auto with her E, and if Irelia is in the middle of using her W, He 10 style, she will be completely outdamaged every single time. 40% of her W's active is going unused. This is really what the Riven player should be thinking about in this matchup, making Irelia waste her W and getting as few successful empowered auto attacks off as possible. A masterclass Riven player can use her abilities perfectly, animation cancel everything, and crush an Irelia who's not expecting it with ease. However, this Riven is not a masterclass Riven player. I've taken note of that with a few tested trades here and there, and with me being level 6, I know that I can solo kill her and outdamage her if I get one of a few different situations to go my way. Either A, Riven whiffs her Q, wastes her stun, shield, or makes another boneheaded play in range for me to engage when she now has a major cooldown up. B, Riven fights me in her minion wave so I have enough to heal off of with my ultimate. Or C, I stun Riven at the right time, play patiently with my W, taper my autos in between her crowd control, and have enough mobility to jump forward with a Q to finish off a kill. In this situation, I'm thinking about option C because that's the one that requires me to play well, whereas the other two require Riven to mess up. But right away, I mess up by going for a disadvantageous trade. I start off by looking for an engage that might have actually not been that bad of an engage, but I don't get my stun. This throws me completely off. I waste my W by popping it right away. She stuns me, and that's a second of my He 10 style wasted. I then cancel an auto attack that would have just hit her shield anyway. I auto a minion instead afterwards. I then begin running away, but then change my mind and decide to Q in for some damage to try and not entirely lose the trade at the very last second, but have another auto canceled by her 3rd Q, and on top of that, I take a bunch of minion damage from this huge creep wave. Honestly, even with all these weird technical flubs and poor decision making, I think the worst mistake of all was trying to fight this Riven so far forward in the lane. Sure, I had warding coverage, but look at where we are. I have no way to chase forward and finish off this kill because if I do get everything off perfectly, she can just run away and hide under tower. When she gets under tower, I probably die and just go 1 for 1 even if I do get a kill here. So once she sees my ultimate come out, she can just hop to safety and I lose all lane control and pressure by making that very telegraphed ultimate show I'm going for a full engage, as well as I actually lose a really nice wave that's pushing into my tower right now if I pop my ulti, and that'll mess up the minion wave, start slow pushing it to her. I don't even know why I'm looking for a kill in the first place right now that I think about it. I mean, look how beautiful this wave is. I think I like killing Riven players a little too much. Here's the kicker with Irelia though. Because I just lost that previous trade, I actually have a weird little power spike right now that this Riven doesn't respect. Riven still did a fair amount of damage to me, but I did a fair amount of damage to her and I'm only slightly lower health than her. This means I guarantee landing my stun, which should prevent a lot of the technical flubs you saw earlier from the whiffed stun. It's a lot easier for an Irelia player to stagger her autos between a Riven CC if she is the aggressor, and on top of that, her minion wave has grown so large that I think I can heal up enough to prevent her ult from executing me. Now again, I'm only going off of this assessment based off of an understanding that she's a bit of an iffy Riven player who's not perfect with her animation cancels, but when I see an opportunity with everyone else bot lane, I immediately go for it. I walk forward and get the stun, successfully managing to make sure that she stuns me while my autos are on cooldown anyway. She pops her ultimate, but I'm able to heal up too much so she can't execute. And even if she tried to run away here instead of suiciding into me, I had low health minions to chase forward and finish her off with a final Q. My E is what really allowed this play to happen, but my E is also something this Riven could have easily played against. If I got the stun, she could have easily just ran away, acknowledging I had a power spike here and not gone for this trade. If I was lower health than her, she could have also just waited till she healed up more health, so she would have survived longer, got more damage off, and potentially positioned herself in a way where I couldn't ult her and the minions and executed me before I finished her off for a kill. I mean, there's a lot of different mind games going on here and a lot of different technical plays that both players have to make. This situation was not simply Irelia is too strong or that equilibrium strike stuns for way too long. I got this kill based off of careful planning based on the matchup and the lane. Think for a second about everything that went into that play, all of the technical elements and knowledge that were required to assess in an instant from both parties what's happening and respond accordingly, and that was just a 1v1 that's not even considering anything related to jungle pressure or preparing for ganks or wave manipulation. Now, think about how different that same situation is if I'm against a Fiora. This lane looks very similar to the last lane, but it's completely turned on its head by playing against a different champion. With Riven, I'm thinking just about staggering my autos between her crowd control and getting that perfect engage, hoping to be the aggressor, popping my abilities most efficiently, whereas with Fiora, everything's different. Here, it's all about attack click moving, paying attention to vitals, saving my stun so she doesn't get her W stun proc, because if she does, I'm dead if I whiff that every single time. This example is a lot earlier in the game, so I will concede things are a little more simple because we're about to fight at level 3, but let's go into detail on how this matchup works. Again, because we're on even footing, this is entirely skill-oriented. Fiora actually has a pretty big advantage here since she's stronger than Irelia in the early game. She's also pushing the wave, which means she has more experience and will hit levels first. She's ahead in CS and also has a bit more minion damage, although that will change when my reinforcement wave comes. Anyway, even with Fiora ahead, you know me, I'm a stupid son of a bitch. I'm still going to try and push my ass to punish any little mistake that this guy makes. So what am I looking at? I'm looking at the minions. Specifically, I'm thinking of QE comboing a low health minion if he stands near anything, hoping to get some free harass off before he gets his parry. Again, once she gets her parry, if she parries my stun and lands it stunning me, I'm dead every single time. So I'm hoping to harass a little bit earlier to maybe avoid that threat. This stun versus parry thing is 100% mind games, and with him hitting level 3, I have to make a decision in how I'm going to kick things off. I decide to be the aggressor with the tower backing me up for safety. There are 4 different options that could happen when an Irelia engages against a Fiora like this. Either Irelia stuns right away and Fiora saves her parry, Irelia stuns right away and gets parry stunned by Fiora using her parry immediately, Irelia waits to stun and Fiora parries immediately expecting the immediate stun, or Irelia waits to stun but Fiora correctly predicts and waits to parry. I make a read on this guy that he's not going to instant parry me and try and play reactively, so I engage, and luckily I'm right. As I engage, his passive comes up to my right side, so I'm thinking I have to make sure I attack click move and stay to the right, hugging this wall nearby. I stagger my autos with my attack click moves and try and move awkwardly on top of him so he misses that vital, and luckily he flubs his Q in a very poor direction, placing him in minion range to take a huge amount of damage from creeps. I'm getting a little overzealous though, thinking for a split second that maybe I can kill him with how he's using his abilities and not just taking the advantageous trade I made for myself, and I mess up in 2 important elements. Firstly, I completely forget that I'm only level 2 and he's level 3. He has a massive advantage because of that, but also he still has a second charge with his E, as well as Thunderlords, which I did not take notice of. This is really weird. I've never seen a Fiora with Thunderlords before, and when I see this crazy damage come out, it spooks me and I back off, deciding to just chill until I get level 3. However, I realize that this means he doesn't have Fervor, and I probably beat him in an extended trade. With him as low as he is from that previous trade, I now look to engage as soon as I'm level 3 with my Corrupted Potion healing me. I engage on him with a low health minion that lets me reset reset the Q and get a kind of lucky stun, if we're being honest. He also Qs at the worst possible time, setting his Q on cooldown, and with this mistake, I'm now thinking we punish with a kill. I attack like move, getting into position, making sure it's hard for him to run away, as well as making sure to stand awkwardly so he can't proc that vital again. Then I'm thinking to try and Q right when he's low health so he can't use his parry, which is still up, to block it, but he gets a perfect W timing off. Now, if this hits me, I can't get this kill. It will proc the vital, potentially healing him. It'll slow me, but more importantly, it will slow my auto attack speed. So right when I see this come up and I see that I don't get the kill, I take a step to his right to make sure I dodge the parry, and right when it's over, I get a final auto attack off for first blood. Look at everything that's going on in my mind. Even as I'm one-tricking this boring champion with this simple kit in a decently high but still mediocre rating, now imagine how ignorant a comment like Irelia is a boring champion that just face rolls the keyboard, imagine how that sounds. It's really easy for us to think in super simple terms. Playing against Irelia for the first time and having to deal with that long stun if she maxes it can feel like bullshit. It can feel like the most frustrating thing in the world. But look how little it does and how well it sets up for a punish if I miss it. Irelia has kill potential and she can snowball a lane super hard, but look how hard you have to mess up for me to get first blood. This is the thing that bothers me about people that make blanket statements saying that Akali is too strong because she got buffed when she didn't need to be, or the goddamn Nasus's wither is bullshit, I can't run away, I can't auto, I can't do anything, or LeBron didn't try hard enough in the finals. When we complain about things based off of our own personal experience or a basic surface level interaction with it all, it can be easy to forget everything that's factoring into it. Yes, Akali does have a very annoying laning phase that's tough to deal with, but it's in sacrifice of her having very poor team fighting in the late game, where if you drag a match out long enough, she will inevitably fall off. Or same deal with Nasus. His wither makes it nearly impossible to kill him 1 versus 1 if you're a fighter versing him on even footing top lane, but he's also a champion who's very easy to kill if you gank him due to his lack of mobility, and he actually has incredibly poor laning phase mechanics that is easily outdamaged and outzoned if he falls behind. I do think there's value in talking about what's overpowered, what's underpowered, what needs buffs, what needs nerfs, the same way that I think there's a ton of value in talking about player storylines in sports and esports alike, but there's a difference between breaking down why things actually are the way they are and getting caught up in hyperbole. The team that wins the Super Bowl doesn't do so because they won it more. Tactics and strategy play a much bigger role. Everybody wants to win, come on. Similarly, in League of Legends, there's a difference between speaking analytically about the overwhelming strength of Arden, Sensor, Janna bot lane and how that creates passive lanes and stale matchups with very little action and anti-fun gameplay, versus Bronze 5 players circle jerking that Master Yi is overpowered because he deals so much damage. The next time you come up against something in League of Legends that seems overpowered to you, try it yourself. Go first time Nasus in ranked and other players will be happy to show you how even these crazy strong abilities like Wither can still be beaten. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed watching today's video. I hope to do some more analytical content like this in the near future. I'd actually like to get into analyzing professional play in particular, which I know I may suck at first. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've really watched LCS. I spend much more time going through NFL Game Pass and analyzing Blake Bortles plays than watching NA or EU LCS, but if you're willing to sit through a little bit of a learning curve with me figuring some things out, I think it could be pretty fun to break down some pro play, especially with Worlds right around the corner. Maybe leave a comment down below if you're interested in seeing something like that, but either way, thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. I know it was a long one. I'll see you all tomorrow, but until then, good luck in solo queue and have a wonderful day.